He was not a warrior, yet the fate of all life rested on his tiny shoulders. A hobbit, a gardener's companion, and a burden that would consume his soul from the inside out. The One Ring did not announce its conquest with fire or fury. It whispered, it seduced, it eroded. And Frodo Baggins, the most unlikely of heroes, became its most tragic victim. The moment Gandalf dropped that golden band into Frodo's palm in the quiet safety of Bag End, the clock began ticking, not toward victory but toward annihilation. The ring's corruption was not a sudden storm but a slow poison, invisible drops accumulating in the bloodstream, unnoticed until the body could no longer fight back. This is the story of that poisoning, step by step, whisper by whisper, until there was almost nothing left of the hobbit who once loved second breakfast and the smell of pipeweed on a summer evening. In the beginning, Frodo wore innocence like a cloak. His eyes sparkled with the naive courage of someone who had read about adventures in books but never tasted their bitterness. When he volunteered to carry the ring to Rivendell, it was duty mixed with youthful excitement, a chance to see the world beyond the Shire's borders, to prove himself worthy of Bilbo's legacy. He did not yet understand that the ring was not luggage. It was a parasite, and it had already begun to feed. The first whispers came softly, almost imperceptibly, like the brush of silk against skin. As Frodo fled the Shire with Sam, Merry, and Pippin, the ring hung heavy around his neck, not from its physical weight, but from something deeper, something that pressed against his chest like a hand slowly tightening its grip. In the old forest, beneath the ancient malice of Old Man Willow, Frodo felt it for the first time. A strange pull, a compulsion to touch the ring, to feel its cool surface beneath his fingertips. He resisted, but the seed was planted. The ring had mapped the pathways of his mind, finding the hidden doors it would later kick open. At the prancing pony in Bree, the corruption took its first visible form. In a moment of careless joy, a rare, fleeting glimpse of the old Frodo, he slipped. Literally, the ring tumbled through the air, a golden arc of fate, and as he reached to catch it, his fingers slid through the band. The world shifted. Suddenly he stood in two realities: the warm, firelit tavern and the cold, shadow-drenched wasteland where the Nazgul existed in their truest, most horrifying forms. He saw their hunger, felt their ancient malice directed solely at him, and understood with bone-deep terror that he was being hunted by things far older and crueler than anything the Shire had prepared him for. When he pulled the ring off, his hands shook not just from fear, but from the lingering echo of power, the intoxicating sensation of being unseen, untouchable, above the mortal world. But what price would he pay for every step closer to Mordor? Weathertop was the wound that would never heal. Frodo, urged by a desperate Aragorn to run, to hide, to do anything but put on the ring, did the very thing he was warned against. Surrounded by the five Nazgul, their spectral blades gleaming with cursed light, terror overrode reason. He slipped the ring on, hoping for escape, and instead delivered himself directly into their realm. The Witch King's blade, forged in sorcery and ancient malice, plunged into Frodo's shoulder, not just piercing flesh, but injecting a sliver of Morgul poison that would burn like frozen fire in his veins. The wound was a doorway. Through it, the ring's whispers grew louder, more insistent, and Frodo began to hear them even in his dreams. They spoke in a language he did not know but somehow understood. Promises wrapped in silk, darkness disguised as comfort. The journey to Rivendell became a feverish blur. Arwen's magic saved his body, but something fundamental had shifted inside him. He woke in the house of Elrond and smiled, reunited with Gandalf and Bilbo, but his sleep was no longer peaceful. The ring called to him in the night, a siren song that made his fingers itch and his heart race with longing. When Bilbo asked to see it one last time, the transformation was swift and terrifying. The kindly old hobbit's face twisted into a mask of desperate greed, his voice a guttural rasp. Frodo recoiled, clutching the ring protectively, and in that moment of possessiveness, he glimpsed his own future. A creature consumed by need, unable to distinguish love from hunger. At the Council of Elrond, Frodo stood and volunteered to carry the ring to Mount Doom. It was a moment of pure, heartbreaking heroism, the last decision made by a Frodo not yet corrupted, the final act of the innocent hobbit from the Shire. He did not know that he had just sentenced himself to a slow execution. The fellowship formed around him, 9 companions to guard one fragile soul. But even their combined strength could not shield him from the enemy he carried against his own heart. The mines of Moria tested the fellowship's unity, but for Frodo, the darkness held a different terror. In those lightless depths, where Gandalf's staff provided the only illumination against the crushing black, Frodo felt the ring's presence grow heavier, colder. It fed on the despair of that place, drawing strength from the ancient evil that had consumed Khazad-dûm. When Gandalf fell, dragged down by the Balrog's whip into the abyss, Frodo felt the loss like a physical blow. Not just grief, but the sudden, suffocating realization that the one person who truly understood the ring's danger was gone. He was alone with it now, adrift in a quest he no longer fully comprehended, guided only by the fading memory of the wizard's final command, "Fly, you fools." But the ring whispered, "Stay, rest. You do not need them. I am all you need." Lothlorien should have been a sanctuary, a golden reprieve from the darkness. But even there the corruption deepened. Galadriel, ancient and terrible in her power, looked into Frodo's eyes and saw what he was becoming when he offered her the ring, a desperate attempt to rid himself of the burden. Her refusal was both a relief and a condemnation. She passed the test, but Frodo understood that he would not, could not. The ring had already woven itself too deeply into his identity. He was no longer Frodo Baggins carrying the ring. He was the ring-bearer, a title that was slowly erasing the person beneath it. Galadriel's mirror showed him visions of the Shire burning, his friends enslaved, and in those flames he saw his own failure reflected back. The weight of potential apocalypse settled onto shoulders already bowed by the ring's physical and psychological mass. The breaking of the fellowship at Amon Hen revealed the ring's most insidious power. It turned love into a weapon. Boromir, driven mad by desperation and the ring's promises, hunted Frodo through the forest like prey. The man who had sworn to protect him became his attacker, and Frodo, terrified and betrayed, committed the act that would haunt him for the rest of the journey. He put on the ring and fled. In that moment of escape, he experienced the full, addictive rush of its power. Invisibility was the least of it. He felt invincible, elevated, as though he had shed the limitations of his small hobbit body and become something greater. The Eye of Sauron found him instantly, a burning gaze that stripped away all pretense. But even that cosmic terror could not fully eclipse the euphoria of the ring's embrace. When he tore the ring off, gasping and shaking atop the seat of seeing, Frodo made a decision that would define the rest of his journey. He would go to Mordor alone. Not because he was brave, but because he was terrified of what the ring would make him do to his friends, how it would twist their love into tools for his own destruction. He took a boat and rowed toward the eastern shore, toward the darkness, and in that moment of isolation, the ring celebrated. It had successfully severed him from the one force that could still challenge its control. Fellowship, friendship, love. But Sam would not let him go alone. The partnership between Frodo and Sam became the story's emotional core, but also its greatest tragedy. Sam's loyalty was absolute, his love unconditional, and the ring despised him for it. As they crossed the dead marshes, following Gollum through the corpse-lit waters, Frodo began to change in ways that terrified his companion. His eyes, once bright with hobbit warmth, grew distant and cold. He snapped at Sam over small things, his patience eroding like a cliff face battered by relentless waves. The ring whispered constantly now, no longer content with subtle influence. It spoke to him in the black speech, in the language of power and domination, and Frodo found himself listening, nodding, agreeing with thoughts that should have horrified him. Gollum became the ring's instrument of division. The creature, himself a cautionary tale of the ring's ultimate corruption, recognized in Frodo a kindred spirit, someone walking the same path Smeagol had walked centuries before. Frodo's pity for Gollum, his insistence on mercy, was both his greatest strength and his fatal weakness. He saw in those bulging, mad eyes his own future, and the recognition bred compassion. But the ring used that compassion, twisting it into something darker: identification. Slowly, imperceptibly, Frodo began to trust Gollum more than Sam. The ring drove a wedge between the two hobbits, whispering that Sam did not understand, that he wanted to take the ring for himself, that only Gollum, who knew the ring's true nature, could be trusted. The descent down the stairs of Cirith Ungol was a descent into madness as much as a physical journey. The stone steps, carved by some ancient, forgotten hand, wound down the mountain face like a tongue licking toward hell. Frodo barely ate now. Sleep brought only nightmares of the eye, of burning towers, of his own hands closing around Sam's throat. The ring had grown so heavy that he moved in a constant stoop, bent like an old man, and when he touched his chest, he could feel the metal burning through his shirt, searing a brand into his flesh that no one else could see. His voice, when he spoke, carried an edge that had never been there before. Sharp, dismissive, cruel in ways that made Sam flinch. What was happening to the hobbit Sam had followed into hell. Shelob's lair was supposed to be Frodo's death. Gollum, driven by his own desperate need for the ring, led them into the spider's darkness, and Frodo, weakened, paranoid, barely holding on to sanity, followed. The ancient evil that dwelled in those tunnels was older than Sauron, a creature of pure, mindless hunger, and when she struck, her venom was a mercy compared to the poison already coursing through Frodo's soul. He fell paralyzed, wrapped in webbing, and for a moment, just a moment, there was peace. The ring's voice went silent. The burden lifted. In the darkness of Shelob's cocoon, Frodo Baggins ceased to exist, and there was only blessed nothingness. But Sam saved him. Loyal, heartbroken Sam, who fought a demon spider with nothing but sting and desperate love, who carried Frodo's body down the mountain, who refused to let his master die. And when Frodo woke in the tower of Cirith Ungol, surrounded by the corpses of orcs who had killed each other fighting over his mithril shirt, he looked at Sam with eyes that held more gratitude than words could express. For a brief, shining moment, the old Frodo returned, the hobbit who loved his friend more than power, more than the ring, more than his own life. But the moment passed. The ring remained, and the final ascent to Mount Doom still lay ahead. The plains of Gorgoroth were a vision of apocalypse. The land itself was a wound, scorched and poisoned, where nothing grew and nothing could live. Ash fell from the sky like snow, coating Frodo's hair, his clothes, his eyelashes, until he looked like a ghost wandering through a cemetery of stone. The heat was suffocating, a physical presence that pressed down on him with the weight of Sauron's malice. Every step was agony. The ring, sensing its proximity to home, to the fires where it was forged, fought back with everything it had. It showed Frodo visions of glory, himself as a great king, armies bowing before him, the world remade in his image. Promised him power beyond measure, immortality, the ability to save everyone he loved and punish everyone he hated. All he had to do was keep it. Just keep it. Turn around. Go home. Claim what was rightfully his. Sam watched his master deteriorate in real time. Frodo stopped speaking except in short, rasping commands. He crawled on hands and knees when walking became impossible, dragging himself across jagged volcanic rock that tore his palms to ribbons. Blood mixed with ash, and still he crawled, driven by something beyond will, beyond hope. A momentum born of pure, suffering inertia. Sam tried to carry him, to bear the burden as he had always done. But when he reached for the ring, offering to take it just for a moment, just to give Frodo rest, the transformation was instant and terrifying. Frodo's hand shot to the ring, clutching it protectively, his face contorting into a mask of bestial rage. "Don't touch it," he snarled, his voice barely recognizable. "It's mine." For a heartbeat, Sam saw not his friend but something else. Something ancient and hungry and utterly mad. The moment passed. Frodo's face crumpled with shame and horror at what he had almost done. But the damage was complete. The ring owned him now. There was no more pretense, no more resistance. He was its creature, and the final act was merely a formality. They thought the war was over, But the true battle had only just begun. The slopes of Mount Doom rose before them like the teeth of a dead god. Frodo's body was failing. Dehydration, starvation, exposure, and the ring's spiritual corruption had hollowed him out until he was barely more than a skeleton wrapped in ragged clothes. Yet he climbed, one hand over the other, dragging himself up the path where Sauron had first claimed dominion over. Middle-earth, the Sammath Naur, the cracks of doom, waited at the summit, a cathedral of fire where the ring could finally be destroyed. But Frodo had been lying to himself, to Sam, to everyone. He never intended to destroy it. When they stood at the edge of the precipice, molten rock churning below, the moment of truth arrived with terrible clarity. Frodo held the ring up, dangling over the abyss, and Sam whispered desperate encouragement. "Throw it. Now, it's time. Let it go." For 3 heartbeats, the world held its breath. Gandalf, fighting on the Black Gate with what remained of the Free Peoples, felt a flicker of hope. Aragorn, buying time with his life, dared to believe. Even Sauron, secure in his tower, felt a tremor of uncertainty. Then Frodo spoke, and his voice was not his own. "The ring is mine." He put it on. The world exploded. Sauron's eye, which had been scanning the battlefield, snapped instantly to Mount Doom, and his scream of rage and triumph shook the foundations of the earth. He saw everything in that moment. The hobbit standing in the heart of his power, claiming the ring as his own, the naive fool who had delivered himself an ultimate victory directly into Sauron's hands. The Dark Lord gathered his will, preparing to descend upon Frodo like a hammer, to claim his prize and crush this insect who dared to call itself master. But fate, in the form of a twisted, broken creature named Gollum, had other plans. Gollum, who had followed them in secret, consumed by the same madness that now controlled Frodo, attacked. Not to kill, not to steal, but to reclaim what he called my precious. The 2 ring-bearers grappled on the edge of oblivion, invisible to the mortal world but burning like stars in the Shadow Realm. And in their struggle, they became mirror images of each other. 2 souls utterly destroyed by the same golden lie. Gollum's teeth found Frodo's finger, bone crunched, blood sprayed. The severed digit, ring still attached, disappeared into Gollum's mouth even as he danced in triumph. Even as his feet found nothing but empty air, he fell, clutching his precious, into the fire. And the ring at last was destroyed. Frodo collapsed on the ledge, his hand a bleeding ruin, and felt the sudden, catastrophic absence of the ring's presence. It was not relief. It was not freedom. It was amputation. A part of his soul had been carved away, and the void it left behind was absolute and howling. He had carried that evil so long that it had become part of his identity, and now, with it gone, he did not know who he was. The ring had promised him power, purpose, meaning, all lies, but lies he had believed with every fiber of his being. And now there was nothing, just a broken hobbit bleeding on a mountain as the world collapsed around him. Sam found him there, curled in on himself, weeping, not tears of joy, but tears of grief, mourning for the thing that had destroyed him, that he had loved despite knowing he should not, that had filled the emptiness inside him with poisoned purpose. Sam gathered him up, held him as the mountain shook and the fires rose, and promised him that it was over, that they could go home now, that everything would be all right. But they both knew it was a beautiful lie. The scouring of the Shire revealed the final cruelty of Frodo's journey. While he had been fighting nightmares in distant lands, evil had come home. Saruman, reduced and petty and vengeful, had poisoned the idyllic land Frodo had fought to save. The other hobbits, Merry, Pippin, even Sam, rose up to drive out the invaders, finding strength they never knew they possessed. But Frodo could not fight. He stood in the ruins of his childhood, surrounded by the ashes of his innocence, and felt nothing but exhaustion. The Shire had been his reason, his hope, the golden memory that sustained him through the darkest hours. But the Shire he remembered was gone, and the Shire that remained felt alien and wrong. When Saruman raised a blade to strike him down, Frodo did not flinch. He had walked through fire and shadow, had borne a weight that broke the world, had lost parts of himself that could never be recovered. What was one more death? But Sam and the others intervened, and Saruman died in the dirt, killed by his own servant, and Frodo felt only pity. He understood now, in a way he never could have before, how power corrupts, how it promises and delivers only ruin. The wound from Weathertop never truly healed. Neither did the others, the invisible scars that crisscrossed his soul like spider webs. On the anniversary of Shelob's sting, Frodo would fall ill, feverish and delirious, reliving the paralysis and the darkness. On the anniversary of the Morgul blade, his shoulder would burn with phantom pain. And every night, without fail, he dreamed of the ring. He woke gasping, his hand clutched around nothing, mourning its absence even as he hated himself for mourning. Middle-earth had been saved, but Frodo Baggins had not. When the elves offered him passage to the Undying Lands, to a place where the wounded could find rest and healing, Frodo accepted without hesitation. Not because he believed it would fix him. He knew some things were beyond repair, but because he could no longer bear to remain in a world that celebrated a victory he could not feel. At the Grey Havens, with salt wind in his hair and Sam's hand in his, he tried to explain the choice. But how could he tell his dearest friend that every moment of peace felt like a betrayal, that he could not look at the Shire without seeing it in flames, that the simple joy of existing had been taken from him by a piece of jewelry that no longer even existed? "I tried to save the Shire, Sam," he said, his voice breaking on every word, "and it has been saved. But not for me." He boarded the ship, the shore receded, and Frodo Baggins, the hero who saved the world, sailed into the west, not toward victory, but toward the hope that somewhere, in some distant land of peace and starlight, he might remember what it felt like to be whole. The ring was destroyed. The quest was complete. But the true cost of that victory was measured not in battles won or kingdoms saved, but in the soul of one small hobbit who carried a burden too terrible for anyone to bear, and who paid for the world's salvation with every piece of himself that mattered. He was the hero Middle-earth needed, but the hero Frodo Baggins could never be again.